After some serious upgrades to our Porsche GT4, it is now an absolute animal out on track. Our next track day was supposed to be Spa, which is next week, but we just couldn't wait that long to get back out on track because we're enjoying driving this car so much. So today we're at the RMA day, which is a Porsche only day as well. So we're surrounded by around 50 Porsches, the majority of which GT cars. So we're in very, very good company out on track today. So we're going to get behind the wheel. I'm going to have a drive of it myself because last time I was here on the Supercar Driver Day at Donington, we didn't have the additional torque and power as well. So we're going to see how that's affected the car and how it's improved or unimproved its drivability, and we'll see about that very soon. We're also going to get Leyton behind the wheel, who's a professional racing driver, and just get his opinion as well. Last time we were out at Leyton Park testing out the power upgrades made by Genome Design with the over-axle pipe modification and the engine tune. That package made a big difference to the drivability of the car, and the handling improved substantially as well because we were able to use the throttle differently and just get the whole car through the corner in a much nicer state, and it was so much more drivable and usable as well. So today we're back at Donington Park. I was last here on the Supercar Driver Day where we didn't have any engine tune done whatsoever, so it's going to be really interesting in very, very similar conditions to see how the two compare. These tyres are on their 7th track day now, these Cup 2s, so this will be their last day. So I'm not expecting incredible results from the car today because it's safe to say they're definitely going off now. So we'll put a fresh set of boots on in time for Spa next week. So we'll definitely be managing tyre today as well, but it's going to be really interesting to see how that first corner has been affected, because last time that was an issue where we were getting third gear through the corner, the car was bogging down and it took a while to get back into the rev. So I'm really hoping now that with this tune, we can stay in the torque curve effectively and keep the car pulling out the corner and back into the rev band a lot faster. Just before I headed out myself in the GT4, we put Leyton Clarke into the driver's seat to see what he thought of the car around the circuit. He's a professional racing driver and we value his feedback substantially, so we thought we'd get him out first, get some laps in and then see what he thought. Awesome. What do you think? How does it drive?
Well, yeah, first of all, very, very impressed. As you know, I've spent some time in this car at Silverstone now, 8 months ago, which is a long time, and I've driven a lot since then. The crazy thing is, we're on the same set of tyres.
You're on, yeah, this is the last day, I promise, but yeah.
7 track days on one set of tyres.
7 hard track days.
7 hard track days on one set of tyres. So, I mean, that's testament to how good the Cup 2 is, first and foremost. So, yeah, since I drove it at Silverstone, obviously, you've brought it on quite a bit. You've put a lot more power into the car.
Yeah.
Which has now made it a lot more usable, a lot more playable as well. Whereas before you had to use the throttle almost like an analog sort of bang on off.
When we did the Leyton Day with Chris before you got in it at Silverstone, he did a little bit of driver coaching at the end of that day, and he's basically saying like, get to the apex and then just smash the throttle into the ground. No matter what corner you're coming out of, mash it, and it worked. But I tried that like 2 weeks ago at Leyton, and it was snapping on me. So now you've got to bleed the throttle back in.
You've got to work with the car more. So I think it just adds another dynamic to the way you have to drive these. And obviously from factory they're a bit numb, they're a little bit stale, especially the front end. So with all the suspension work you've done, plus adding that heap power
Yeah,
has
exactly.
made it, you know, it's made it a lot of fun.
I feel like it
A lot
comes
of fun.
together now because we've got sort of the grip through the corner. We're carrying the pace through the corner. Like I was on this, I've not seen the V box yet, but on the dial I was doing 110 through Craner's.
Yeah.
So it'll be a bit less in real life, but
Yeah.
like that, I've never gone that fast through there in this yet.
No.
And that's on these tyres, and they're dead now.
So throw a new set of boots at it,
but
it's
then-
going to go even faster.
So we're carrying the pace, we're keeping the pace, but then we've got the torque because the gearing's not the best, so we've got the torque. So like to gain again on corner exit, which is quite nice, rather than just like getting sluggish again and getting back on the cam, you can pull it through on the torque now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the one thing that I noticed, you know, now is these seats are obviously, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But being a manual, your feet are always having to do work, meaning you can never kind of brace yourself. The one thing I think with this car is going to benefit from next is going to be harnesses.
I totally agree.
It really needs harnesses
agree.
just to pin you to the seat, lock you in so you can actually drive and let your legs sit freely, because I'm definitely getting a sore knee.
My knee's killing.
From the-
I'll have a
from the
bruise.
tunnel.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
pinning yourself in.
I think that's going to help.
Yeah.
The other thing I kind of, a small comment, very small comment, was coming into the heavy braking zones, especially down the back straight into the S's.
Yeah.
The car just seems to squirm a little bit on the nose.
Under really heavy braking.
Under really heavy braking.
Yeah, so I felt this at Alton. So it's a bit more bumpy, isn't it, Alton, the braking zones? And like under really heavy braking, we'll probably be able to see it on the V-Box, but like the wheels just shifting around like that.
And that's what's happening there.
Yeah.
So yeah, another small thing I'd probably look at doing would be solid bushing.
Exactly,
the
yeah, but
front
we've still
axle.
got rubber pucks in it. The stock rubber pucks are still in. The stock inner rubber bush and the rear rubber bush, which I'm not really feeling the rear as a
No, the rear feels
but
great.
if we're going to do it, we'll do it all.
Yeah.
But I think that'll definitely help with like real locking the tyre into the ground stability.
Yeah,
Just for those really high-speed braking sections.
Yeah, and of course, when you add new boots, it's going to add more grip, and it's just going to
Exactly.
accentuate the problem.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think solid bushes,
Yeah.
harnesses in,
Yeah. And then fresh boots.
fresh tyres. It's going to be a serious car.
No, I
It's gonna
agree.
be a serious car.
And then like beyond
maybe a
that,
GT3 killer.
well, it's getting there, isn't it? And then I think beyond that, I think we have to then probably start looking at aero. I think it's time to, because that's what I do feel it through the high-speed sections. It does need that little bit extra downforce so we can really carry the pace now.
Yeah, I
Just
agree.
force that tyre into the ground. 'Cause I think
something
I
maybe
mean,
canards or like a rear wing, maybe a club sport rear
yeah, a
wing
bit
or
of a
something
splitter.
like that, splitter. Yeah,
Definitely.
it'll be a nice package. Plus, it'll look smart as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, like on the tyre temp sensors now, we know we've optimised the setup now, so we're going to do these fine-tuning things with the bushes and like make it like better, but incrementally now. The big changes they've done, I'd say.
Yeah,
but I think
absolutely.
aero
Yeah,
will be
the car's
last.
90% there.
Exactly. I think aero's like
Yeah.
the last big shift.
Yes, agreed. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, you built a monster.
Yeah, epic. Cool. Glad you enjoyed it. All right. We're going to show a quick overlay of before the tune and after the tune. So on the left-hand screen, it's the RMA track day after the tune was completed. On the right-hand screen, we've got the supercar driver track day before the tune was completed. So we're going to show these side by side. Very similar weather conditions, same tyres as well, and same driver. It's me driving, so not a professional, but it'll still be interesting to see any key differences between the two because it's exactly the same track in very similar conditions. So turn one is where we really felt the downside of the OEM power band. So it'd be nice to see through here as we come in if it's made a difference on corner exit, because that's where we felt the car really bogged down beforehand. So here on corner exit, you can see the speed trace is really amplified. So we're up at about 6 miles an hour here as we hit that curve at the top of the hill, which means we're carrying more pace through Craner curves because we're able to get up to pace and then hold the throttle through Craners for stability. So we're actually carrying much more pace down the hill just because we were able to get back into the power band as we went up and over that crest. So really nice to see. And again, up through all the sections on track where it's sort of a low speed corner exit where you dropped off a little bit in third gear, we can actually see that we're about 5 to 6 miles an hour up by the end of all of these short straights, which makes a massive difference in terms of lap time. As we come into this top corner, this is a corner where you would usually see not massive gains because we're already in the power band quite substantially here with the OEM mapping right at the top of third gear. So we've only got a couple of mile an hour gain there. So not as much of a gain as the corners where we're well out of the rev band. Whereas now we have the torque to pull us into that rev band with the tune. We have the tyre temp sensors working again as well for this lap. So as we can see, the front tyre distribution is really, really nice. We're just going into yellow a little bit on really heavy braking as we're scrubbing that heat into the compound as we're getting on the brakes. But the overall width and distribution of that grip is really clean, really consistent as well. We're going right to those outside edges as well through the high speed corners, getting most of the way out of there through the low speed corners. And again, we're getting a nice temperature distribution. But what's more interesting about the temperature distribution is that at the rear wheels, we've always had the issue of the thick red strip on the inner edge of the tyre. So what we've diagnosed as, and some of our followers have also commented this in the comments too, is that the OEM over axle pipes with the OPFs fitted have been superheating the inner edges of our tyres at the rear, and they've been causing that red strip on the temp sensors. Whereas now we've got the OPF delete pipes fitted, the over axle pipes in tune, it's got much cleaner airflow and it's actually building a lot less residual heat in that pipe. So the heat transfer between the exhaust pipe and the tyre has clearly reduced significantly looking at the tyre temp sensors at the rear there. So we've got a very thin red strip now rather than a big thick red strip, which means that we're not superheating that compound anywhere near like we were before. So I think with a few more tweaks in that rear wheel arch, we can get rid of that altogether now, because that's a really, really positive step forward in terms of getting that rear tyre temp distribution down, because that's always been a slight issue for us, that we could never manage that very inner strip, whereas now it looks like we're very close to getting rid of that, so we can go back to focusing on just maximising rear tyre efficiency to get as much grip out the car as possible on track. So really cool to see that. So very exciting that we've got corner exits definitely improved substantially with that improved torque curve. We've got much more pace at the end of every corner. At the end of the straights, they're only short straights, but we're up to 5 to 6 miles an hour faster due to the increase in the acceleration, which is really cool to see. And that means we're carrying more pace through the high speed corners because we're able to get up to that speed before we make the turn. So it means we're overall so much faster around the circuit because we're able to carry the speed through the corner. We've got the grip to do that, but we just didn't have the pace to get up to the speed to carry that grip through the corner. So now we're so much faster overall because we've got all bases covered. So next up, it's going to be really interesting to see how we get on at Spa, which is obviously a much faster circuit than this as well, and then see what the next steps are going to be following that.
It's the end of the day here at Donington now. We've been out all day on track, just having an absolute blast with the other Porsche GT cars. It's been really nice to be out on track with very similar cars. Obviously the 3RSs were faster out there than on the 2s, but it was nice to dice with other GT3s, 4RSs, and just get a feel for the pace of the car. And I'm personally very impressed again, just by how it holds its own now against the higher models in the Porsche GT range. And it's also just such a large amount of fun to drive now. So, I mean, we've covered it with Leyton before, but just the difference in drivability now. We've got the grip through the corner, so we're carrying so much more pace through the corners. On the Speedo, we're pulling about 110 miles an hour through craners. It'll be a bit less on GPS, but that's a lot higher than we've ever been before. But then more than that is we're able to just keep the car going off the corner exit and just keep the pace up as we've got a little bit more torque now as well, just to push through back into the rev range, which is really nice, especially with the gearing on the manual gearbox. So the other thing I guess to mention is the tyres are going off today. So this is the 7th track day on these tyres, and they had grip, you know, good grip for about 2 to 3 laps, but after that you could feel the compound really just starting to go off, and the whole car was starting to wash a little bit at the same speed, so we had to bring the pace down a touch because it's definitely time for some new boots. But the beauty of that is we had the grip to correct mistakes. So when the car did get a tiny bit out of shape as it was losing grip, there was enough camber there to sort of push back into the tyre and regain control. And when it was just getting to slight oversteer, there was just so much confidence to use the gas, use that torque. Even though we dropped out the revs a little bit, there was enough torque just to dial the rear round a little bit to get the nose back under control if it was washing, and vice versa. We could just use the front end. If the back end was going out, we could just let the front just catch it and then just come back out to the curb. So it was really nice to have usability in the chassis now. Like, the limitations are definitely being removed quite quickly. That said, there's definitely more steps to do now. So the immediately obvious things that we need to do next are, my knee is really sore after just pressing off the tunnel, and that's just through the corners with the G's we're now carrying through the car. I'm physically pushing back on the tunnel to prop myself up in the seat, and that's quite sore now actually. It's probably gonna have a bruise tomorrow. So now we need some harnesses just to lock me into the seat, because the bucket seats are good for shifting, but because you're on the brakes and you're turning in, trail braking, you're coming out the seat and being pushed into the center of the car. So I need locking into that seat so I can put more effort into driving rather than physically trying to keep myself seated. That was also apparent under the really heavy braking zone. So where I'm really hard onto the brakes, you'll see on the onboard footage, like the steering wheel is just doing this a little bit, and that's sort of a two-pronged thing. The first thing is because my physical body weight is coming out the seat on the brakes because it's just a belt. I'm having to push myself back into the seat to stop me coming forward, and that means I'm putting force into the steering wheel, which shouldn't be there. It's got enough force to deal with turning the wheels and actually managing the tyre without me having to then press on it and just putting that extra input force into it, which is going to disrupt the contact patch. So we're going to get smoother lap times and a smoother driving style if we fit some harnesses to lock me back into that seat. Going back to that braking with that small movement in the wheel, that is partly due to me pushing on the wheel. The other part of it is in the really high speed braking zones, and it was really apparent at Leyton Park in the bumpy braking zones. The front is definitely just having a really little dance. It doesn't feel unstable, it doesn't put you off pushing and braking late. It's just a little dance, and you can just feel the tyres wiggling, and that is those rubber bushes in the front axle. So in the front lower control arm, we've got a rubber puck that controls the front tension arm, and we've got an inner bush as well. So through the corners, those bushes will be flexing slightly, just changing our geometry a tiny bit the faster we go and the more grip we put back through them. And under really heavy braking, they're both going to be flexing, and they're just going to be letting that coffin arm move very slightly forwards and backwards, and that's where that instability comes from. We're scrubbing the compound a little bit as that's happening, so that's going to take away from our turning. It feels great on turning right now, but it will feel better if we can remove that. It will feel a lot more planted, it will dig into the tarmac, and it will just give us a really clean turn-in with no extra feed required. So that's definitely the next stages for the car. Something else we had today was we got the tyre temp sensors working again. And the temperature distribution was absolutely perfect on the tyre, which is great to see again. It means we've got the setup really dialed in with the spring rate and the camber to match along with the tyre that we're currently using. So if we were to change compound to something grippier, we'd have to dial in more camber to suit. That's something we'll be covering later this year as we try out different tyres. We can show you those setup changes, and that's why we build setup sheets for our customers. That's why we don't give the settings in these videos, because it is dependent on the tyre, the hardware and the driver. So we have that conversation, we get that information, and then we build the settings around that, because it does need changing depending on the different components fit to the car. So we'll go into more detail on that later in the series, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're really interested in getting that information, because that'll be really interesting to watch. If there's any upgrades that you'd like to see us try as well on this build, then please let us know in the comments below. Obviously we've got a plan and we're following the step-by-step process of modifying the car, and we're always moving to the next weakest link. But if you think there's something that you're interested in doing on your GT4 or your Porsche, and you're interested to see what the difference would be, then just put it in the comments, and we're always interested to listen to your comments and get your feedback and integrate that into the series as well. It's also going to be an exciting year for our FATM3 projects. We have something really cool in the pipework for that too, and we also have a potential new car joining the fleet very soon for development work, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that content as well.